Hey guys, so recently I summarized the entirety of what I remembered Chainsawman to be about. This was since I watched and reacted to the first 9 episodes on my second channel before getting tackled by the linebacker of life and then being unable to continue. Feel free to check that out, but in my latest returning to this series video from 2 weeks ago, I was pretty certain I remembered most of the first nearly 5 volumes worth of content. And in so many words, I was wrong. Very wrong. Before I continue, however, I want to take a moment to give a shout out to my channel members. This video's feature shout out goes to Star Material. If you'd like a chance to get featured at the beginning of my next video and to support my future content, feel free to become a member today. Also consider subscribing. It's free and it won't cost you a contract with the devil. So not only was I very wrong about what I remembered, but I was also pleasantly surprised by the differences between the characterization and relationships the manga had to offer over the anime. I'm going to explore the first 39 chapters of the manga in this video and analyze some of the differences I noticed that really left an impact on me and some of the recurring themes that I spotted. I'm also going to talk about the importance of these characterizations and what I predict is going to happen later on in the story based on what I know now. One thing that especially caught my eye is how well the manga paints Denji as expendable and vulnerable. We knew this was the case in the anime from the first episode, but the manga does an especially effective job of showcasing Denji either being outright told he's not worth much more than a dog, or being straight up put into an ultimatum because he is like a dog. What's really tragic is that often the illusion of choice is offered to Denji, but he either doesn't seem to notice or care that it isn't the real deal. I noticed this theme of expendability early on in the manga, starting with volume 1. While it may seem like Denji puts himself in these situations, it's clear that sometimes they find him. In chapter 1, for example, it's revealed that he owes a debt passed on from his quote-unquote dead, useless dad, and is therefore subjected to being used by the Yakuza as a clown. They know that he has to obey their every word. This setup forces Denji into a position of putting on a show of swallowing a cigarette, and while he manages to trick the guy into believing that he's done so, it's degrading for anyone to have to put on this shit stick to make what doesn't even currently amount to $1 US. Yep, that's right. As of May 2nd, 2024, in fact, the amount he's offered to swallow this cigarette in yen is hardly worth even half a US dollar. So right off the bat, we have this idea of Denji being Fido, literally being called that before asked to swallow the cigarette. For contrast, there's another character who Denji meets in chapter 3, Aki Hayakawa, and there is no way in hell I can see him putting himself in the same situation. He just wouldn't allow that to happen. He would never be put in this position. Denji's situation gets even worse when we see a flashback of him standing at his father's grave. His father apparently committed game over, and Denji is told by the Yakuza basically that I don't care if you beg for it or whore yourself out, have 100,000 yen ready by tomorrow. So at that point, Denji's life is hardly worth what is currently $647.95 USD. Wow. Less than $700. We open up with a very bleak reality in this world staring at us. You better make the money or you're good as dead. This doesn't exactly leave Denji with a whole lot of choices or freedom. So it's no wonder that later on when he meets Makima, he's absolutely thrilled and ready to be taken advantage of. Anyhow, back to the dog motif. Denji is also once again characterized as being obedient like a dog right before the Yakuza knife him and leave him with the zombie devil in chapter 1. So he essentially serves his purpose to them and now they're just gonna discard him. What's interesting about this is that the act of discarding Denji is what opens the door for him to become the titular Chainsawman after Pachita sacrifices himself to save Denji. We still see Denji being utilized in new, arguably more manipulative ways going forward, however. While the Yakuza treated Denji like the dog they saw him as and dumped him off for dead when he had fulfilled his purpose to them, the agreement was always transparently a threat. With Makima, however, the threat is made to look almost appealing and almost like a choice. Manipulation at its finest. Makima's characterization in the manga profoundly amplifies Denji's vulnerability by highlighting her manipulative and domineering nature. From their first encounter in the manga, Makima exudes an aura of control to me, seamlessly blending warmth with an underlying malice. She provides Denji with food, shelter, and even promises of affection, creating this facade of care that potentially masks her true intentions. This contrast of nurturing and exploitation reveals Denji's susceptibility. He craves basic human nature and validation that Makima dangles before him like a treat before a pup. Her ability to manipulate his desires makes Denji appear even more vulnerable, as he seems to be completely unable to see through her facade or resist her influence. Makima's calculated actions, from her gentle tone to her strategic rewards, underscores the imbalance of power between them. This paints Denji not just as a simple, loyal individual, but as a pawn in her grander schemes. The dynamic between them exacerbates his fragility, making his dependence on Makima not just a matter of physical survival, but also an emotional and psychological entrapment. For me, this further deepened my empathy for Denji's plight and the inherent dangers of his deep loyalty. Makima is... I'm just gonna say it. The anime painted her as so much more likable, and did not make the manipulation nearly as clear to me as the manga did. Now that I've read the first 39 chapters of Chainsawman, I can see very clearly that Denji is just a tool. She knows how to turn him on and use him, literally and figuratively. She is calculating, cold, and to the point. She becomes Denji's next handler in that she offers him food, shelter, and potentially even sex as the narrative unfolds. I can't help but feel, however, that Denji is somehow in danger in her presence. I didn't get this sense in the anime. In fact, the anime characterizes Makima as being so much more playful than manipulative. The manga, however, just has these moments with Makima where it's very clear that he's being used and still denied the value of being a real person, a full person, even if all his physical needs are now being met. A question I continue to come back to is whether or not Denji either is aware of this and doesn't care, or isn't aware of it and therefore can't possibly care. The danger in either case is what should or could he do about it. His arrangement with Makima and the public service force may look like a better arrangement, but let's look at these two panels side by side and really consider what's different about Denji's standing in the eyes of his master. Absolutely nothing. A dog is a dog, even if he's now a pampered dog. We've got a panel here of Makima making it clear that he will be killed if he doesn't obey, and a panel of the Yakuza making it clear that he will be killed if he doesn't pay. As of the end of Volume 1, he's a happy dog though. I mean, for Denji, simply having his basic needs met is, of course, an upgrade, but it comes at the cost of him choosing the only two choices Makima has given him. Die as a devil, or live as a human. On a side note, I love that he's being told to live as a human when it's a devil that's even given him the chance to live any semblance of a normal life to begin with. It's an interesting twist because when he was fully human, Denji was hardly doing what we would call living. Only through Pacha's salvation and sacrifice, and through Denji's utilization of his body for public safety, can Denji even begin to achieve semblance of his initial goal, an average life. Living as a human is harder than one would think, especially as we progress further into the story and see that Denji isn't so different from his fully human counterparts. Everyone held in the public safety office is bound by some kind of weight, and like Denji's burden, it isn't necessarily a threat of death in the event of a denial of willingness to serve, but it is nevertheless a weight on one's freedoms. Aki, for example, is held there by his desire for revenge on the gun devil who killed his family. Kobeni is held there by her obligation to her family to put her brother through college so she doesn't have to whore herself out, which is revealed in chapter 15. And even though we aren't ever told what motivates or binds Himeno to serve in the public safety force, the fact that she gave up her right eye to form a contract with her ghost devil says everything it needs to about what she's willing to do to serve. Everyone we've met in this story so far has sacrificed something to better serve their role, since it's only legal for the devil hunters to form contracts with the devils. It's fascinating to realize, then, that there is an entire onion of obligation going on. The public safety is obligated to serve the public, of course. The people in the public safety are obligated to the various motives that causes, and in some cases, forces them to join. And the hunters are obligated to form contracts with devils so that they can better fulfill their roles. I know no man is an island, but damn, I would love to know what some of the everyday civilians mentioned throughout the background of the story do to get their contracts without being bound by some kind of obligations or opportunities, that the public safety people are. The world Fujimoto's created doesn't exactly have people lining up to volunteer to work for public safety or to become civilian devil hunters, unless they have a powerful motivation or are strictly, and preferably according to Himeno, unhinged. I'll be the first to admit, I don't think I could do it. In addition to being continually put to service and compared to a dog, it becomes clear over the first 39 chapters that Denji and those around him are also questioning whether or not he still has a human heart, or even any semblance of a human consciousness left. There are some moments where, as a reader, I ping-pong back and forth over the extent that this is true, especially since there's a scene in chapter 36 where Power, who, reminder, is a fiend, or a devil that has taken over a human corpse, is seen eating one of the zombie's arms. While she's eating this formerly human arm, she explains in the elevator to Denji that meat is meat, pork, beef, human, it's all the same, but Denji argues it's totally different. So to me, that's a pretty human take. I would have loved to have seen more of this argument because I don't think it's there just for comedic relief. They're interrupted, of course, by the force of zombies, but I don't think it's any coincidence that this chapter especially lays the foundation to probe what it means to be human in this world. The Katana Devil has his own take on this argument as well. We see him arguing with Denji that because his own granddad was human before he got turned into a zombie, Denji should apologize for killing him, even if he got turned into a zombie. Denji, however, argues, of course, that this is unnecessary because his granddad was turned into a zombie and no longer human. The fight closes with Denji repeating a line that we heard throughout his training with Kishibe. Didn't your granddad ever teach you that a beast should never trust a hunter? That scene was so badass. I loved that scene. The fact that we get slices of this conversation about what it means to be human has kept me fascinated. I love how often it's paired with combat or scenes of high intensity. The philosophical argument next to combat is quite an interesting contrast. We also see it offhandedly explored through Denji's conversations with different characters, including Makima, Power, and even reflected in how other people in the public service treat him or mistrust him on first contact. I suspect that as the manga continues, the conversation about what it means to be human compared to what it is to be a devil is only going to get deeper and more nuanced. The lines are already blurred, given that we have Power, who is a corpse possessed by a devil, but yet demonstrates a profound love for her cat Meowie, which is very touching and very human. We have both the Katana Man and Denji, who seems to have become unified with their devils, and even regular interactions between devils and the humans they've made contracts with, creating relationships that almost look like friendship if we didn't know any better. For example, think about how the fox outright refused to respond to Aki's request for aid after he got on its bad side. The final thing I want to talk about in this video is what I think is coming up next. Even in my What I Remember video from 2 weeks ago, I discussed that it felt like the Gun Devil was shaping up to be some kind of big bad. Given that I know devils are created out of fear, and given the immense power I've seen demonstrated by Makima when she had literal giant holes shotgunned through her and lives to tell the tale, I really have to wonder if Makima is some kind of devil herself. The manga has all but confirmed it. Other people around her, like Kishibe, are privy to some kind of information that even we readers are not privy to in the first nearly 40 chapters. And the dramatic tension created by this decision has honestly had me hook, line, and sinker. All I can keep asking myself is, what the hell is Makima? How did she live? Think about it. In chapter 22, the entire party is attacked. We lose some of our early cast members, and by chapter 27, Makima has already taken out damn near all the attackers involved. How did she crush people in Tokyo while being located in Kyoto? That's a 283-mile distance. That's a 2-hour bullet train ride, or a 3-hour plane journey. Literal breathtaking power. It's wild to me that everyday people aren't permitted to know what contracts that she has with what devils. I personally suspect she's in a similar position to Denji and the Katana Man. I think she's absolutely some kind of devil or a devil hybrid herself. It's wild to me that she wants to send Denji out to take care of the gun devil like a good dog. All I can keep asking myself is why she isn't out there doing it herself, given what we've just witnessed seems to be but a modicum of her abilities. Why hasn't she chosen to sacrifice a shit ton of shitty people to stop the gun devil? There must be some kind of relationship between her and the gun devil that prevents her from doing just this. I can't wait to see what their relationship is, or what sort of power is stopping her from opening that door and taking that path. Also, poor Aki. After everything with Himeno, the future devil wants to witness his death up close and personal. I don't think I'm ready for that day, and it sounds horrific, especially if it's enough to drive the price of the contract down to nearly nothing. Consider the fact that one guy gave up all his senses to make a contract with the future devil, and yet Aki's cost is nearly nothing simply because the future devil is entertained by what he believes Aki's death will be. I am not ready for that ride. With that, I'm gonna keep on reading, and I'll see you guys in 2 weeks for my thoughts on chapters 40 through 52, which is the rest of Volume 5 and all of Volume 6. Take care of yourselves out there, and thanks for watching. Matane!